Now that Charlie and Kate are here, I think we can start. Appreciate you coming along. And today I'm going to talk about our experiences, the places we went to, initially in Jordan, and then we'll move into Israel, and we'll end up in Jerusalem today. And the next time we will continue and spend some time in Jerusalem, and then we'll move into the Palestinian territories and talk about that part. Before we went on this trip in 2010, we were a little concerned about safety. How safe would it be going to Israel and West Bank and all that area? And talked to some Jewish friends of mine who live in Memphis and have relatives in Israel. And Howard told me that on their last visit several years ago, he felt safer. He felt safer in Israel than he did in North Memphis. So on that basis, Dale and I said, all right, we'll risk it, and we had no issues whatsoever. So I want to start off by orienting ourselves just where we are in the world. I'm not getting into any current politics or any deep religious issues at this point in time, but we flew from Paris, Memphis to Paris, and then to Amman, which is the capital city of Jordan. We also went to Jerash, which is the oldest Greco-Roman city in the world. And we also, while we were in Jordan, we went to Petra. And we'll talk a little bit about Petra. So this just orients you as to where we are in the world. And just a little bit different perspective. Israel, Lebanon, Jordan. We ended up right at the Israeli-Lebanese border. Here, of course, is Syria. We'll talk also about the Golan Heights, which I imagine everyone has heard about, and other areas. We'll go through Nazareth, and where are we? There we go. So, I want to start off then in Amman. And Amman is the site of the citadel, the Temple of Hercules. And this just gives you a snapshot of the Temple of Hercules. Here is a model of the Temple of Hercules. It was estimated that that this model, this is what Hercules may have looked at. He was probably a pretty tall individual. They estimate 39 feet. All that remains of Hercules is his elbow and his hand with 3 fingers. From these, they estimate that he was roughly 39 feet tall. Was probably destroyed in an earthquake. We also went by in the same area, the Amman Citadel, Byzantine church, the ruins of a church. And also, we'll overlook the Roman theater. You can see it down here. And this was also in Amman. But we also looked at Hadrian's Arch. Hadrian's Arch was built in about 129 to 130 AD. It was originally 11 meters in height. It probably had some wooden doors, and it underwent restoration about a few years before we actually went there. So this is in Jerash, which is the oldest Greco-Roman city in the world. Also, you can see here the Roman Forum in Jerash. Parts of the Forum just from a different angle. Again, part of the Forum. This shows a Roman road with the columns on the side. And a colonnaded street. with the columns on the side. Also, the Nymphorium, which is a water reservoir, the water supply for the city. There's a water fountain. Oops. Didn't press the right button. Water fountain right here, and water back here in the reservoir. Now we want to move into Petra. I meant to ask at the beginning, how many here have been to Israel? Quite a few. How many have been to Petra? Not as many. But we're going to talk a little bit about Petra, the Rose City. As indicated here, it was inhabited by, I think I'm pronouncing it correctly, but the Nabateans in the 2nd century BC until the 2nd century AD. These were Arab-speaking people. Over the period of time, they sort of disappeared, and Petra not exactly disappeared, but it wasn't known, and it was a number of, maybe 100, 120 years ago that Petra was found again, identified. And recently, Petra was voted among the new 7 wonders of the world. Those 7 wonders of the world are Machu Picchu, Chichen Itza, the pyramid there, Christ the Redeemer statue in Brazil, the Taj Mahal, the Great Wall of China, Petra in Jordan, and the Roman Colosseum, obviously, in Rome. Now, to get to the main sites in Petra and to appreciate it, you go through what is known as the Siq. It's about 3/4 of a mile long, and it's basically a tunnel, if you like, between the 2 sides of it here, presumably formed in an earthquake. And we walked along the Siq. You can probably see here little channels, and water flowed along here at some point in time. It was not flowing when we were there. As I said, it's about 3/4 of a mile walking through the Siq. And as we walk through the Siq, we catch the first glimpse, as we're getting ready to exit the Siq, we catch the first glimpse of the treasury. And if any of you remember some of Indiana Jones's films, in one of his films, The Last Crusade, the treasury was featured. Okay. All right, it worked. Just to give you a sense of what we were trying to do. So now, as we come out of the Siq, and I should have put this on before, we see the treasury. If you remember The Last Crusade, Indiana Jones, a relative of mine, obviously, he came riding out of the treasury in his horse. We were curious, so we walked into the treasury. It does not extend very deeply into the cliff face, but this is, as I said, one of the new 7 wonders of the world. There is the great temple of Petra, obviously in a state of disrepair. And then we climbed up to what is known as the monastery. And this was about a 1/2 mile walk, maybe, uphill to get to the monastery. Walking along the path here. And here we come to see the monastery. It was a magnificent structure. It's one of the very interesting structures here in Petra. There are also other structures for the well-to-do, the richer folks, the palace tombs, the urn tombs, the obelisk tomb, which is where the well-to-do people were buried, and the cave homes where the less affluent were buried. Now, the Rose City emanates from the fact that this was all red sandstone where Petra was located. Now, we visited the park with Mount Nebo in the background, about 800 meters in height, as I recall, and we looked out, as I said, the Mount Nebo, the memorial for Moses, and we looked at Mount Nebo, we looked at Canaan, the promised land, from the top of Mount Nebo. Just several views looking out on Canaan. And now we come to the Jordan River. In order to get into Israel, we had to cross what's known as the Allenbury Bridge over the Jordan River, go through immigration and everything to get into Israel, which took about 2 hours. There were literally hundreds of people waiting to get through. We were a group of 16 of us, and we finally got all together, and they took us as a group, because one of the issues you have to deal with there is your passport shows you've been to Jordan, which is an Arab country, and you're going into Israel. However, we managed it, and our tour leader was waiting for us for 2 hours, wondering where we were, why we were taking so long. Were we being detained and not allowed into Israel? However, we finally made it. And so what I thought I'd bring up here is just a little more detail about the Jordan River while we're talking about it. The Jordan River is about 156 miles in length. It begins right up here on the Lebanese-Israeli border. It enters into the Sea of Galilee. It's the only real source, apart from some mineral springs, that provide water for the Sea of Galilee. And then the Jordan River continues down here. You've got the West Bank, and then the Jordan is here, West Bank, part of Palestinian territories, Israel, whatever you want to call it. And then it enters into the Dead Sea. And this is the only source of water for the Dead Sea that I'm aware of. And now we're into Israel. Israel is the only Jewish majority state in the world, and it's a parliamentary democracy, as you're well aware. Population in 2020 was about 9 million, 9.3 million. I imagine it's a little bit higher than that right now. And the population is about roughly 3/4 Jewish of all backgrounds, about a little over 20% of Arabs, and about 4 to 5% of other religions. Now, let me orient ourselves again as to where I want to be going. We are going to be heading up, as we come out of Jordan, we're going to be heading into Tel Aviv. We're going to go up the coast to Caesarea. We'll go through Nazareth into the Golan Heights area, right up to the Valley of the Tears, which we'll talk about in a little more detail. And also we have lunch at a Druze village with the Druze people who live in that area. We will eventually come back down this way and go to Masada. Here's Petra, just to give you an orientation. We'll spend a little time next presentation on Masada, and then we'll go into Palestinian territories, into Bethlehem and Jericho and those areas there. We'll also look at the Qumran Caves next time, which is the source of the Dead Sea Scrolls. This is the Menorah, the official emblem of the state of Israel. Tel Aviv, modern city, modern buildings on the Mediterranean Sea. Several views of Tel Aviv. And again, Tel Aviv with the Mediterranean Sea. As we went up the coast, we looked at the Roman ruins in Caesarea, and there are a number of Roman ruins there that we came across. Some of them have been destroyed over the time with the water, the ocean, and the tides. But there's still some structures missing here. There's still some structures here in Caesarea. There is a stone that was found, and the inscription on the stone read, Pontius Pilate, the prefect of Judea, erected a building dedicated to the Emperor Tiberius. Obviously, what is not able to be read from the stone is in parentheses, as you can see there. Then we went up to have lunch with the Druze family. They're Arabic-speaking people, but they do not identify as Muslims. And they do not accept or follow the 5 pillars of Islam. There are between about 800,000 and 1 million of these Druze, Arab-speaking individuals, mostly found in Syria, Lebanon, and Israel, and there are small communities that are found in Jordan. So they served us lunch. We're getting right up to the border of Israel and Jordan. In fact, at one point we were able to walk in the direction of the border, and the closer we got, the more concerned I got, and finally the Israeli police sort of, no, head back. So we left. We didn't try and get any closer, and I didn't even dare take a photograph. I thought that was just too risky. And of course, with the Jews, it's the we were sitting on the floor, and they did provide chairs for those of us who had difficulties getting down on the floor. Get down on the floor, but maybe it's just difficult getting up. And but as you can see, our tour leader here, our tour leader here, Hebra, she was quite comfortable sitting down without any problems. I didn't have a photograph of Dale sitting down and getting up. I didn't think that would be appropriate. And we're sitting down. It was an enjoyable lunch, and one of the good things that this company does that we travel with, oftentimes we'll have lunch or an evening meal with a local family and get to have that sort of interaction. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about the Golan Heights and the Valley of the Tears, or the Vale of the Tears. This was the site of a massive tank battle during the 1973 Yom Kippur War, when the Israelis were sort of caught unprepared for what was going on. The Syrians attacked with an estimated of 900 tanks and a large number of artillery pieces. And in opposition, Israel had about 170 tanks versus 900 or more tanks with the Syrians, and about 60 artillery pieces. On the second day, the Israelis were down to about 40 tanks, and the Syrians had still 500 tanks. And they continued the battle. Fortunately for the Israelis, they got reinforcements coming up. And when we went to an area, we were able to listen to the Israeli tank commanders communicating with each other. And some of the tank captains were saying to the leader, I guess it's time to retreat now because the overwhelming number of Syrian tanks. And you can hear the voices of these tank commanders. And the leader of the tank says, we attack. And they attacked with about 20 or 30 tanks, I don't know the exact number, and ended up routing the 500 Syrian tanks and the Israelis stopped about 20 meters or so from Damascus and then came back. And so the Israelis have occupied the Golan sites basically ever since that time. And some of the tanks are still there. Now we're moving into the Sea of Galilee. We'll hold off on that, okay? This gives you a map of the Sea of Galilee. It's the largest, it's not really a sea, it's a lake, also known as Lake Kinneret. And it's sort of, it's said to be sort of violin shaped. Source of water is from the Jordan River to the north, and the Jordan River continues out to the south. We were fortunate that we were able to stay at a kibbutz, the Kafar Harav kibbutz, basically on the shores of the Sea of Galilee. And we stayed at what's known as a Peace Vista Lodge at this kibbutz. Very pleasant, very relaxing. We're on the shore, we're basically overlooking, as we'll see in a minute, the Sea of Galilee. They provided us with food, lunch, dinner, plenty of food, and it was a very relaxing time. Here I am just walking through the kibbutz. You can see it's attractive, plenty of greenery, plenty of flower, shrubs, trees. And here is a bunker. We were able to descend into one of the bunkers in the residential area just to see what it was like being in the bunker there. And there we were able to get on the towards the Sea of Galilee and look at the sunset on the Sea of Galilee. Twilight on the Sea of Galilee. And Tiberias at night, looking across the Sea of Galilee. We also had the opportunity to take a cruise, a boat ride on the Sea of Galilee. And while we were cruising, and these are boats that are available for tourists, we as this company we traveled with, we were the only ones on the boat, so we didn't have to mess with other folks, if you like. And here we are, enjoying, dancing, having a good time, relaxing on the boat on the Sea of Galilee. Here is a gentleman demonstrating fishing techniques, fishing for tilapia, or St. Peter's fish. He didn't catch any when he was demonstrating. I'm sure Richard could have taught him a thing or two about fishing, but it was just very interesting seeing these techniques that he was using, and throwing out the net into the water to catch the tilapia. We had tilapia for lunch that day, as I recall. Yes. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about what is known as the Jesus boat, or the ancient Galilee boat. Dale has a small brochure, which if you're interested, look around, just see what it is. This was discovered in about 1986, so not that long ago, during a drought, when the waters of the Sea of Galilee receded, were sort of lower than usual, and the exposed boat had been buried and protected, presumably buried and protected by the sediment. The model shows you the model of what's called the Jesus boat, and it was composed of wood. There had been repairs made to it, and they estimated that with repairs and modifications, there were 12 different types of wood that had been used in this particular boat. And there's a mystery. There is mystery surrounding this 2,000-year-old boat. Did this boat witness the events that swept over the Sea of Galilee in Jesus' time? Is this boat the boat that bore Jesus disciples to the surrounding villages to preach the Gospels to the people. Maybe this was just an ordinary fisherman's craft that was converted and used in battle in the great first century Jewish rebellion against the Romans, the Battle of Migdol. Or was it just simply a fishing boat that plied the waters in quest of a daily catch until it was scuttled and abandoned on the shore and buried in sediment? No one really knows the answers to that at this point in time. But if you're interested, if you pass that around, that was what we obtained from the museum we went to, where the Jesus boat or the Sea of Galilee boat or the Galilee boat is located. We also came on our way back to the Jerusalem area, the Capernaum synagogue. There were actually 2 synagogues built on this site. There were residents evacuated at Capernaum. And this is a house that some people think may have been Simon Peter's house. There's more excavations. More excavations. Some indications there was a rock that may have had the word Simon on it, which is why they think it may have been Simon Peter's house. And now we're back to the Jordan River. The Jordan River is a little wider now than we saw it earlier on when we crossed it to go into Israel. And here it's a tranquil river flowing down towards the Dead Sea. And here we come to what is that called? The Yarden baptismal site on the Jordan River, which this area has been preserved for people being baptized, and here is baptism going on in the Jordan River. And now we're coming to Jerusalem. And here we have an overview of Jerusalem. This was our first sight of Jerusalem from the Mount of Olives. There is a Jewish cemetery. Jewish cemetery down here. And as you can see, there is the Temple Mount. This shows the Mount of Olives. And now, we're a little closer look at the Dome of the Rock that's built on the Temple Mount. And here it is on a little bit of zoom magnification. And this is where we'll start off next time. Next time we're going to talk more about Jerusalem. We'll talk more about Jerusalem. We'll go into Palestinian territories and talk about Bethlehem and Jericho. We'll look at the Qumran caves where the Dead Sea Scrolls were found. And we'll go to Masada before we come back. We'll go to Masada before we come back and explore the Palestinian territories. Again, Tel Aviv, Caesarea, Golan Heights, Druze Village, where the Valley of the Tears is, the Sea of Galilee, and this is where we pretty much started off here at Petra. So, Shalom from Dale and I. This is what we experienced in Jordan and also in Israel. I could have probably put in another 50 to 100 slides and bored you for the rest of the afternoon. But I'm just trying to give you, are we finishing at time, Charlie?
Yeah.
Okay. Just trying to give you a sense of what we experienced there. And for those of you who've been to Israel, I'm sure you've had different experiences than what we had. But we just tried to give you a sense of what it was that we were able to experience and how much we enjoyed going there. And frankly, at that time, how safe we felt there. I'm not sure I would want to go to Israel at this point in time. I think there are too many other issues going on. So thank you. If you've got any questions, please fire away. Anyone? Yes, Richard.
Is there still active excavation going on in
Yes.
the fronts?
So far as I know, yes. We didn't actually see it, but yes, there is. There are excavations going on, which we'll see a little bit, because we walked through some of them at the Western Wall. So yes, there are active ones going on. Yes.
About Petra, the treasury, recently on television program, they have started excavating under the steps where you go in there. They finally let them do some digging there, and all they knew at that time that there were some rooms down there, 4 or 5 rooms or something like that. So I just thought you might be interested.
Yeah, I was not aware of that, but yes, that's of interest. Anyone else?
You all able to go in the dome?
No. No, you cannot. You can't even go into the area surrounding it. It's not permitted. Too many issues there too. John?
When we were there, we were able to go into the dump.
Yeah, they had closed it.
Yeah, it's been closed for a number of years. You must have been there about 20 or 30 years ago.
98.
98? That's about 20 years ago then. No, we could not. No one is allowed. I think there were a few years back, there were issues between the Jewish people and the Arabian people, Palestinians, I suppose, that were created problems. So yes, it was shut down. Anyone else?
About 20 years ago, we went with a group from our church and got baptized by Maxie in the Jordan River.
Oh, you did? Excellent.
Yeah, at that place you saw, like, we weren't in the river, but it was at that.
At the baptismal site?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they've sort of set it up for baptisms like that. That's good. Charlie, you had a question? All right, well, thank you for your attention. I hope it was worth your while, and we'll see what we can do next time.